Hey, Echo Church, this is Pastor JD here with another New City Catechism video, just working through the catechism together. We're on question 4 this week, which says, how and why did God create us? The answer, God created us male and female in his own image to know him, love him, live with him, and glorify him. And it is right that we who were created by God should live to his glory. Okay, so the answer first starts by talking about sort of the how he created us, right? How did he do it? Well, he created us male and female. I'm going to talk about that in just a second about why male and female. Why create these different but compatible human beings? What was the point of that? And then he created us in his own image. Okay, so that is right straight out of Genesis chapter 1. I think it's verse 22, right? That God created us in his own image. And so John Piper is going to talk about that in a sec down here, which we'll get into. But then it says to know him, love him, live with him, and glorify him. Now, the only issue I have with this, and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to pick fights or pick apart words too much, but consider what this is communicating. This is sort of saying, because of the commas here, one, two, three, four things that we are supposed to do. Well, we got to know him, okay? And then in addition to knowing him, we got to love him. And then in addition to loving him, we got to live with him. And then in addition to that, we got to glorify him. The reason I don't like that is because actually there's some things here that all of these things are encapsulated under this word of glorify. Okay, so I would answer the question this simply: we were created by God to glorify Him. Now you ask the question, how do we do that? In what ways we glorify Him? Literally, the way we live our lives, the way we go about our everyday, our mornings, our evenings, our afternoons, our meals, our the work which we do, the way we raise our kids. I mean, I could list everything in life that is not sinful and say there is a way to glorify God in doing that. And then I would also say, doesn't knowing him glorify him? Doesn't isn't it to know him and to say, Lord, I desire to know you. I desire to be in relationship with you. Isn't doesn't God say that glorifies me right there? You are, because what are you doing when you say, "Oh God, I want to know you"? You're saying, God, you are valuable to me, right? You're saying, I want you, and you are greater and more valuable than this other thing that I could have. That's not you. All right. So there's value being demonstrated in us saying we want to know you, and then not only know you, but we want to love you. That's dealing with our heart. God, I want to see the value and the love that you are. I'm sorry, I want to see the value and the worth that you have, and then I want to feel rightly in line with that worth. Okay, so um, we 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 show something to be valuable by the way we choose it or prefer it over something else, right? Why is a diamond more valuable than a rock that you would find in your backyard? Okay. How do we demonstrate that? Well, we wouldn't leave the diamond if it was a priceless diamond. We wouldn't throw the diamond in the dirt in our backyard and go take the rock and put it in a black backdrop and, all that's like we we show it by preferring it and saying, yes, this is the more valuable thing. Well, God is our most valuable treasure, and we love him. We are demonstrating him as most valuable. And all of that, I guess my point is to say, all of that is to glorify him. All of that glorifies him. So it's not that we have four things we got to do. It's that knowing him, loving him, and living with him all glorifies him. Um, then it says, and it is right that we who were created by God should live to his glory. And all that is saying is that if we were created by him, it's fitting, it makes sense that if he's our creator, we as his creation would honor and glorify him. So then you've got, if you're on the app here, you've got the commentary section where J.C. Ryle talks a little bit about God's glory. and how we glorify him with our gifts and our treasure and all of those things. And then John Piper, who is my favorite here on this particular question, starts by talking about image and what does it mean that you create an image. You create an image to image something. It's not it. An image doesn't stand alone. An image always points to the thing that it is, the real thing that it is imaging. So he uses the example of a statue of Napoleon. You don't look at the statue of Napoleon and think about the statue. You look at the statue of Napoleon and you think about Napoleon, the real person of Napoleon, right? And the statue in the museum is an image that points you to the real thing or the real one behind the image. So when we are created in God's image, an image is created, as John Piper says, to image. An image is created to say, to be the constant pointer, to say, I'm constantly showing you who he is and what he's like. And that's what an image does. And then he gets down into this idea here, that how is it that we display his glory the most? How is it that if our job as image bearers is to display his glory, which is what I think this should have said over here, how do we display that glory the most? How do I, as a particular person, say, I want to glorify God more than I do now? How do I do that? How do I do that? And then you might also ask a question, and this might come across as um, a, a self-serving question, but I would argue it's not. You might ask yourself the question, well, what do I get out of this? If my job is to glorify God and that's all I'm supposed to do, it's going to sound weird, but you can ask this question according to the Bible. What do I get? What's in it for me? Okay. And I'm not asking that. I don't want you to get confused and think that I'm asking that in a purely selfish motives way. But I think the Bible answers that question for us. And I think we were sort of created to ask that question and to say, hey, I want my own joy in this. Do I get joy out of this glorifying of the Lord? Do I get it? Do I get something that sort of rewards or benefits me in that? And I want to show you the verse that he points out here, 2 Corinthians 3:18. Just going to jump over to our Bible Arc software. And Paul is in 2 Corinthians. He's in the middle of talking about this contrast between Moses' ministry and Paul's ministry of the gospel, and how Moses, would even have a veil covering his face so that, after he had been in the presence of the Lord, he couldn't see the Lord directly, first of all. And then even after he had been with the Lord, there had to be a veil between Moses' face, which is the one who had seen him, and then the people. Okay, so he's talking about this veil. I don't want you to be confused, but that's not the point of this, what I want to say here. He says, yes, this day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. Now he's changing the metaphor a little bit to say, yeah, and the veil is actually blinding them, right? It's actually blinding them from seeing the truth. But when one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Okay, so what is happening there? When one comes to Jesus, the need for something to block me from seeing God, that's gone away, and Jesus is the perfect image, if you will, of God. He's the perfect one to point God out. So that veil is removed, and I get to see God, and not in the way that we will in heaven one day, but I get to see God in that I see him clearly. Nothing in my heart is blocking that. He says, now the Lord is spirit, and where the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. There's plenty to talk about there, but I'm going to move down to 18. And we all, now this is us now, not Moses's, not the Jews under Moses, but us. We all are being transformed. Okay, whoa. You're talking about transformation of me? You're talking about my own heart being transformed, me becoming a different person than I was before? I would hope that every one of us would long for that. I would hope that every one of us, when we had an honest assessment of our own hearts and our own selves, would say, I am in need of transformation. And it doesn't matter if you've been a Christian for 30 years, that you would say, I do not measure up. I need to be transformed. I want to be changed. I want to be transformed. So I'm curious now. This has piqued my interest, and we all are being transformed. Okay. How do I get transformed with unveiled face? Now we are those now with unveiled face. We all with unveiled face. Remember what he said, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Okay, we've turned to the Lord. The veil is removed. We get to see God in his unmediated sense. Again, there's a heaven way to talk about that. One day we'll see him in heaven, but we get to see God through Christ right now, which isn't mediated by a veil, that's for sure. But how is it that we get transformed? Notice this section right here. Beholding the glory of the Lord. Okay, that is a participle, ing participle, beholding. When a participle attaches to a verb like are being transformed, in this excuse me, in this particular instance, it is telling us how the transformation occurs. Okay? I throw in the word by beholding the glory of the Lord. Excuse me. We are being transformed by beholding the glory of the Lord. So, what is this saying then? As I behold God's glory, as I'm seeing it somehow with my eyes, as I'm looking at it and putting my focus on it and beholding it is the word that he uses here. Beholding. As that happens, I am being transformed. So if you ask the question, well, what am I getting out of this? Well, you're beholding the glory of God and loving the glory of God. God is glorified in your beholding and loving him and who he is. You are being transformed, what does it say? Into the same image. Now, that's not becoming gods. That's becoming the fullness of the image bearers that we were always created to be. Remember Genesis 1. God says, I've created you in the image of God. Adam and Eve, I created you in the image of God. That was before the fall. That was when they were perfect image bearers of God. And then the fall came in and ruined their image, right? Ruined their image bearing. We are being transformed, though, into the same image, slowly but surely being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. What's happening? As we behold God, we are being transformed even into greater degrees of glory. Now, that's not our own glory. That's reflected glory. As we become better imagers, it's like becoming a better mirror. If you take a mirror and you scuff it up and it looks like one of those bathroom mirrors at the park. Like, have you ever seen those bathroom mirrors? And you're like trying to look at yourself and it's just messed up. If you were to polish and clean and make that a perfect mirror, it would have a perfect reflection of the one that it is reflecting. And so, in a sense, our being transformed is being transformed into better and better and better mirrors. And my question is this: if the sun shines off that perfect mirror, that mirror gets to experience and even reflect and even exude all of the glory of the one reflecting into it. So the better mirrors we are, the more glory we have, not our glory, but the more glory we have because we are reflecting the one who is glorious. And guys, that's what heaven's going to be. Heaven is going to be coming into the full fruition of the image bearers that we are. And we're going to have this glory because we're reflecting it out all the time. So that's the idea here, is that we get the joy and the glory of being reflectors. And God gets the glory of being the one from whom the glory comes, and we're turning it back to him and we're saying, God, we praise you. We see your glory. We see who you are. So why did God create us? To be image bearers. And what do we get out of that? Well, we are being transformed into better and better and better image bearers, and that's heaven, friends. That is heaven. To know and to be able to experience God in his fullness is what heaven ultimately is about. It's about him, and it's about reflecting him. And so if heaven is that way, then it stands to reason that earth, this earthly life, is an increasing, right? Never perfect, but increasing longing in our hearts and desire in our hearts, and even being transformed in small amounts in this life in preparation for heaven, where one day we will shed our earthly sinful bodies. We will have resurrection bodies, and we will be perfect reflectors of who He is. So, God bless you. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll be back with another video next week.